Hello, and thank you for joining us. I've got Michael with me today, and we're going to be talking about transformation to core systems within the insurance industry. Before I get to the questions that I have for you, can you give everybody an introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Emma, for having me. Michael Fiedel from PolicyFly, a policy management system built from the ground up for brokers, agents, and underwriters alike. Also a co-managing director of Insurtech, Ohio. Very excited to be joining you here today.
Great, thank you. And that Insurtech Ohio group is how we got connected with some of my friends from Ohio from Naviant. So very excited for that connection to be hitting the I guess not live stream, the recorded stream for us today. So my first question for you is obviously through your role with PolicyFly as well as with the Insurtech Ohio group, you're talking to carriers about some of the challenges that they're having with core solutions, and you've been having those conversations for years. So what are some of the common challenges that you hear from carriers as it pertains to some of those tools that are really driving processes for them?
Yeah, a few stand out in particular. I'd say interoperability is a huge problem. I think the industry as a whole is well aware that carriers oftentimes are stuck with, for all intents and purposes, with legacy technology that creates impediments to interoperability. The future of insurance has more to do with an ability to share and receive information and to create experiences around that interoperability than really anything else. And so we all get, I think, lost in the weeds around this digital tool or that digital tool. We are all familiar with the various acronyms, but ultimately those that are going to win are those that can both share and ingest new forms of information and evolve with technology more rapidly. I'd add to that as maybe a segue of that, a segue of that systemic issue is too many carriers, although they are investing heavily in their own technology, the intake of an application or communication with agents and customers are all too often, at least on the commercial insurance side of the fence, wrapped up inside of emails and PDFs.
That communication with your customers piece is definitely something that I've heard a lot of as well. And I mean, even when you just look at communication across the board, I just had a conversation with someone else talking about an insurance scenario where they noticed that 60% of the people copied on emails don't even need to be there. Yeah. And so like just unwrapping communication in general in the industry is a really interesting thing as well. So have you seen anything change? You mentioned specifically like interoperability and kind of like that integration mindset. Have you seen things start to change as digital transformation has really started to take more of a hold within the insurance industry?
Definitely on a technical level, insurance carriers are investing in building the appropriate APIs in order to communicate with digital storefront opportunities. I think a bold penguin may not describe themselves as that specifically. However, it's a good representation of how to create a digital placement platform. And that allows insurance carriers to bolt in. And so I think you're seeing some success where insurance carriers are able to focus on developing against specific lines of business where they feel like they can focus their expertise and their investment for immediate return. But I think more importantly, on a broader level, the change is really in the industry's attitude overall. I feel confident that every kind of niche in the industry, whether you're an underwriter, an insurance agent, a wholesale broker, a service provider, everyone is driving at accepting and embracing the digital transformation that is ongoing. And I think so there's been really this attitude shift that is palpable. I think that more than anything else stands out. I mentioned service providers. I think naturally they've been technology facing and stewards all along the way. But in many respects, service providers have at times, at least going back, at least 5-10 years, there was this attitude of disruption that was predominant. And now that's kind of faded away for good reason, mostly because a lot of those that were trying to disrupt the agent, broker, underwriter engagement models in the industry have ultimately failed or have had to pivot more or less. And now the focus is more on enabling these individuals to do more with the time that they do have and to improve their expertise on a broader strategic level than being inundated with mundane operations. And so that shift in strategy, I think, is one key reason why over the last few years, the industry overall is starting to see a lot of improvement in the success of the underlying technology at the heart of this transformation.
It's an interesting insight that everybody is now finally getting to that point where we're moving forward and all kind of with that shared goal of changing the way that we work and thinking more strategically about how those relationships work. My last question for you is going to be more on the side of kind of helping carriers understand what are the types of questions that they should be asking other, whether it's those service providers or consulting providers coming in to help them with technology or partnering with other Insurtechs to kind of get their digital transformation a little bit more accelerated.
My cautionary tale is it's easy to get wrapped up in what you're getting for the initial implementation of any service that you're buying into. But the far more important perspective is how fast is this technology going to evolve as we use and learn from it. So the focus really needs to be on the velocity with which you're going to be able to continue this transformation, and not necessarily whether the initial implementation of any one solution checks more of the boxes than any other. Naturally speaking, if the MVP phase 1 release of service provider A so greatly outweighs that of service provider B, that service provider B would be spending years trying to help you catch up, then naturally that initial implementation is a strong one from service provider A. But what I would encourage, especially the larger clientele in this industry, is to pay attention to the service providers who provide a layer of consulting, if not actual hands-on usage of the platform you're buying, to learn alongside you, to participate in strategically identifying how your evolution will continue once that technology is in play.
I really like that, and especially like kind of thinking of it almost from more of a total cost of ownership perspective. And I think a big part of that is what you said, like how is the tool going to continue to grow and move with you, or are you going to have to replace it in a couple of years? Because that plays into what that total cost of ownership looks like.
Let me add to that. What I also am passionate about in particular, it speaks to PolicyFly's particular focus in the industry, is a lot of the challenges around policy management when trying to address how to build a scalable workflow for both the distribution as well as the underwriting of these policies and programs. These challenges are really more rooted in user experience and communication than they are of any particular technical nature. Some of the things that will get implemented to feed information into these systems are quite technical. Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotic processing. I mean, the list goes on, and it's easy to get, again, lost in the weeds. But fundamentally, it's how this information is going to be used and how it's used to make decisions and communicate those decisions. Like, are we providing a real-time quote? Or are we setting some expectation that a quote will be provided within a few days? The difference between setting those expectations and leaving your audience hanging, whether that's a customer or agent, is the difference between success and failure. And so it's not necessarily that you have to be immediate in returning a price, but you have to be immediate in returning an expectation of when you'll be able to return a price. Keeping that perspective in mind, I think, is a huge leg up when trying to identify how you're going to, over a great period of time, be more and more successful. It's much more a matter of diving into the experience and the communication than it is worrying about whether one technology is any more, complex than another. Those issues actually aren't as hard to solve as it is to try to figure out how two human beings need to interact online.
I like your focus on the human side of transformation there. Caught myself muted. But I want to take the opportunity to say thank you for joining me and encourage anybody who's watching to make sure that they make their way over to following you, PolicyFly, as well as Insurtech Ohio, to make sure that they're staying up to date with you and all the things that are changing within this industry. But thank you very much for joining me, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thanks, Emma.
If you're looking for expert tips on how to get started with your transformation or looking to hone in on your approach, make sure that you subscribe to our channel to catch our weekly Digital Transformation Talk series, where we interview experts from around the world on how to make it happen.